foreign policy should always remain beyond politics. And Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi has very clearly articulated this. And his actions of the first 110 days reflect this in pretty large measure. His engagements all across the world have been based both on continuity and deepening the ties around the world. In some sense, taking us back also to a little bit of the non-aligned era, where we are looking at Japan and Australia and China on one side, deeper relations with the U.S. starting from this visit next week, probably meeting with Mr. Putin sometime next month, followed by a meeting with the UK Prime Minister, David Cameron, sometime in November. So he would have, I think, by the end of the year, broadly mapped both the neighborhood and the international arena. I don't know if something is on the cards with Germany and France, but I wouldn't be surprised if before the year is over, there would be some engagement, possibly the sidelines of the G20 or some other opportunity to engage with them. Very clearly, he did not try to change very much from the past, but add to it. If you see the Look East policy that the earlier government had propagated, Prime Minister Modi has only tried to expand on that so that we demonstrate to the world that India's strength of its democracy and the strength of its electoral process, where regimes and governments change in a very peaceful fashion. There's a lot of continuity, and each government builds upon what has happened in the past. Shri Atal Bihari Vajpayee had the privilege of leading the country for 6 years. We had an initial dip in the relation after the Pokhran nuclear tests. There was a build-up in the latter part of his tenure around 2002-2004. It was expanded in the erstwhile UPA regime. And I'm very confident, despite a little bit of problems on a personal and a political level in the last few years, I think our party and the BJP-led NDA will only expand this relationship going forward. And this trip to the US, starting on the 25th, I see will clearly take this engagement to a different level. We must acknowledge that President Obama has, despite such a short time frame, extended a very, very warm welcome to him, given a gesture inviting him to the White House on the 29th for one round of informal discussions over dinner, another engagement on the 30th morning. It's a very rare situation that the president takes 2 engagements in 2 days on a non-state visit. A state visit would obviously take a year and a half or 2 to prepare for. But the gesture is well acknowledged and appreciated in India. In a manner of speaking, both the US and India have a very shared ideology. One where our democracy and freedom and liberty, both freedom of expression and thought, liberty of individuals, liberty to do business, are very central to our countries. In fact, the constitution of both countries start with "we the people." And in that respect, very clearly, the individual is at the core of both histories, whether it is the US history or Indian history. The US went through all sorts of issues, but ultimately equality prevailed in that country. India went through a lot of challenges on similar score, and at the end of the day, we have a very robust democracy where everybody is equal, where everybody has a right to dissent, right to express his views and thoughts. And in that respect, the responsibility of both the US and India to world politics is deeper and even more important. I was going through this book a couple of days ago when I got the opportunity to interact with Secretary Albright on your platform. And I was quite happy that, in a manner of speaking, this book sets the tone of the engagement. It has covered a very wide range of subjects. Dr. Sidhu has articulated it in his in the earlier chapters, where he brings out the wide range of issues and the possibilities of moving beyond discord. It is always important to look at a wider perspective rather than focus ourselves or just get stuck on one or two issues. We will obviously have some sort of disagreements. It could be on immigration, it could be on IPR. There will always be issues. I don't think any marriage also succeeds if it's only a one-way street, right? So it's good to have a little bit of contentious issues also, which can keep both sides engaged. But if you look at the possibilities, they're huge. Whether it's in Kiran's area of healthcare, whether it's in the area of energy, which to some extent is my responsibility, whether it's climate change, where we have a shared concern for the future, education, where probably all of us in this room may have had some sort of exposure to the high quality of US education in our lives. When it comes to trade and business and investment, there are huge possibilities. IT space, where India has contributed to the American growth and America has contributed to developing high quality professionals in India in the IT space. So I see the gamut of possibilities are immense. And I'm given to understand that the engagement, even at the pre-summit level talks or pre-engagement in the US, at different levels of government have been very deep and very intense. I have had 3 rounds of discussions with the energy minister there, with the secretary commerce, lastly with the deputy NSA. And I find a lot of enthusiasm on both sides. There's a keenness to move this relationship beyond MOUs into actionable ideas, actionable processes. There's a keenness to participate both in the India growth story and in the efforts that the United States is making to bring about a certain amount of consciousness in the whole world about what we are leaving back for the next generation, the issues around climate change, issues around environment. And both sides are in agreement on a vast array of issues. I'm not concerned about the few issues. We had a dialogue, for example, in the last round about HFC, hydrofluorocarbons, and the impact that would have going forward on the world and particularly in India. Now, it's an area where there can be no discord, there can be no disconnect. That is something we need to address, something we would love to understand and study better, so that going forward the world is left as a better place to live in. But then the way the engagement should move, the various steps leading towards an HFC-free world, will certainly be a matter of debate and discussion. How are you, Mr. Deva? It'll certainly be important to see how this engagement progresses. But I'll just leave 2 thoughts that I personally believe will only help strengthen Indo-US relations. Trade, commerce, business, all of them will have very important role to play in the Indo-US relations. Deeper ties in defense, greater role for companies and corporates will always be there. But I think the kind of role that an institute such as Brookings and a lot of the people around this table play in terms of people-to-people contact, in terms of the relationships that have been built over the last 40, 50 years between very distinguished people on both sides, scholars, diplomats, people of lot of interest, opinion makers on both sides. I think that people-to-people contact is something which I see will be the defining moment in building up and expanding this relationship. And lastly, going forward, I would think that if both countries respect each other's sovereign integrity, sovereign independence, and work with mutual respect and reciprocity in engagement. I can see huge opportunities for both countries to play a bigger role in world politics. I see huge opportunities for businesses to prosper on both sides. In my earlier avatar in the opposition, I had raised this issue, flagged it off on many occasions. Also in my interactions with many diplomats from the US, that end of the day, the one thing that will be most uppermost in the mind of every Indian, even when Prime Minister Modi is in the US, is the confidence that our Prime Minister will ensure that India's interests are well protected and that a fair degree of reciprocity in engagement, in discussions, in outcomes has to be achieved. I believe that the potential is immense. America has a surplus, probably huge amounts of investment surplus, finance, capital. India has huge amounts of investable surplus in terms of its qualified manpower, its people, our technology, knowledge strength. If we can merge both of these together, I don't see any other relationship having a deeper impact on world politics than the Indo-US relationship. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. It's an outstanding book. I compliment Brookings India for taking this initiative. I'm sure all policymakers and all of the people who are going to be involved in this dialogue will benefit very greatly from going through this, understanding the perspective from different sides. It will help us also understand what is good for both countries. I'm sure this will be a good setting, a good document to set the agenda of the talks over the next 4 or 5 days next week. And I compliment you, Subir, I compliment you, Dr. Sidhu, and other colleagues. Very, very illustrious names I read who have contributed to this book. I compliment all of you and hope that this role that Brookings is playing to expand the dialogue, to expand the track to relationship will continue to flourish. I'm always there to assist, to be a part of any effort that Brookings does, and would look forward to learning a lot more about, particularly about Indo-US relations and in the larger context about geopolitical developments around the world through your scholars. Thank you very much.